So you're going to have your ECG rhythm exam at the end of the semester. You're going to have to be able to identify 10 rhythms. This is one of the simulators that we've got. So this is a Zoll monitor, defibrillator. You can do defibrillation. You can also do synchronized cardioversion with it as well. You can also do transcutaneous pacing with this particular monitor. As far as looking at our sim, so this is not the actual simulator. This is the monitor that you'll utilize, but that device right there is the simulator that you'll utilize for this. So want to go over how to get that set up. Obviously you want to make sure that the defibrillator unit is plugged in, and it is, and you want to make sure that the simulator is plugged in, and you also want to make sure that the ECG lead wires are connected as well. So if you'll happen to notice, these little metallic dots right here have a LL, LA, RA, RL, V1 through V6. So you could do a 12 lead on this if you wanted to. However, we're just going to hook up the standard limb leads, which will be 1, 2, and 3. So we'll utilize LL, LA, and RA, I believe. So if you'll come back over to the monitor, there's a cord that goes to the monitor. You should have a black, white, and red cord. So, and you'll notice on the tip of that cord, like for instance, that has an LL on it. So LL will snap to LL over there. RA will snap to the right arm. If you look at that one, you can see that has LA on it, so that would go to the left arm. So just make sure that you look at the abbreviations on the actual lead wire and get it snapped to where it's supposed to go to. So this is LA, LL, and then we'll have one more. And this should be RA, and it is RA. Hook that up to RA, and then what you can do is you can go ahead and slide this toggle up. That's your power button. So now the simulator is on and it's attached to the defibrillator. So we'll go back to the defibrillator and power on the defibrillator. So we're going to take this knob and turn it to monitor.
Check pads.
It's going to tell you check. Now we'll tell you, this pads are connected to this. This is a live defibrillator. So be careful with this. If you're charging anything up or anything to that effect, you wouldn't want to discharge accidentally or anything of that nature. So I have on the remote over here, it defaults to NSR or normal sinus rhythm. So what I'm going to do is come over here. You'll notice that there's no rhythm here. After you've turned on the monitor, and how we turn that on was we just click that to monitor. Now we're going to hit this button, lead, and now we'll see that we have the monitor there. You'll notice that those ECG tracings are pretty small. So if you'll come over here and hit this size button, you can hit it, I believe it's 3 times, get it up to size 3, and that's going to give you a much larger ECG to be able to look at. So as far as practicing your ECG rhythms, I would make it a point to, I mean, there's some electronic ones that you can find on the internet. There's some stationary rhythms that you can look at. But as far as a live running ECG, this is one of the simulators that we've got. And I'll go over more later on in the future, but this is the primary one that you all will be utilizing to study with this summer. So what we'll want to do now is look at the remote aspect. So if you'll pay attention to the remote, we do have one which is a normal sinus rhythm. Then you've got tachycardia, bradycardia, asystole, atrial flutter. Let's take a peek and see what that, I don't remember what that is. That's atrial fibrillation. And we'll click these here momentarily and let you see the changes that take place on the monitor. But you've got second degree atrioventricular block type 1, second degree atrioventricular block type 2, third degree. You'll notice we don't have I don't think there's a first degree on here. there is, excuse me, it's a special function. So if we're going to do that, we'll do that third degree. You can throw some PACs if you want to, premature atrial complexes. You can also do PVCs, you can do couplets, ventricular tachycardia, ventricular fibrillation, and then special functions. So if, basically, if there's a rhythm not on one of these quick keys on the top, on both sides, you've got special functions. So ultimately, if I wanted, let's say that I wanted to do first degree atrioventricular block, you can see that right there, and 19 is a special function. So what I would do, I would hit special function, type in 1, oops, I hit the wrong button. So we'll go with our special function and 1, 9. And that gives me first degree atrioventricular block. And then after it's accepted, you'll know that that takes place on the monitor. And then remember, with your blocks, you're looking specifically for the gap or your PR interval. If you have a PR interval that's longer than 0.2 seconds and that's sustained from beat to beat, you're looking at a first degree atrioventricular delay. If you've got a PR interval that might start out normal but progressively gets longer and longer until you have a P wave with no QRS complex after it, then you've got second degree type 1, Mobitz 1, or Winky Bach. If you have a normal PR interval for the QRS complexes that show up, but then an unconducted P wave that is, so it stands alone by itself, then that's second degree type 2. And then if you have pretty much no coordination between your P waves and your R waves and a relatively slow ventricular rate, you're likely looking at complete heart block there. So we'll go back to this. So if we want to go back to a normal sinus rhythm, notice when I go from a normal sinus rhythm that gap from your P wave and your R wave is going to get closer. See how that did there? So you've got, it's much closer there. So then you tachycardia is what that's going to look like. Bradycardia, you can slow it down. Asystole will obviously be flat. Atrial flutter, have your delta waves or your flutter waves in there, takes on the sawtooth pattern that we can see there. Atrial fibrillation, you've got QRS complexes with pretty much no discernible P waves. Your second degree type 1. And we'll make sure that it takes. And you can see how it goes longer and longer to one drop. So progressive longer, then it's going to drop. There's nothing after it. Second degree type 2. So the PR interval is normal for when they show up, but then you do have P waves that stand alone by themselves. We go to third degree, and that's what your third degree atrioventricular block with this simulator is going to look like. VTAC, this specifically is monomorphic ventricular tachycardia that can be with or without a pulse. And then we have our ventricular fibrillation. That can be coarse or fine. This is coarse ventricular fibrillation. And that's how you utilize the simulator.